And what inspired you to write the book?
Um, the inspiration of the book is essentially my overarching fear that books are dying, and that the end of, and not an era, but an age, the age of books, is coming to a close. And consequently, everything that we think of as culture in our society today is going to change very rapidly, very, very soon. And people aren't ready for it and don't understand that this is going to happen. As with any change, I don't think, in fact I know for certain, because I've read enough about it, that in 1900 people understood how different the world was going to be in 1910 because of the automobile. And in 1910 they were still saying, if you can imagine that age today with computers, we are only 20 years into the personal computer as a widespread phenomenon. In 1910, people did not understand that in 1920 the horse was going to be gone, an artifact. And that's the rapidity of change that's overtaking us today. The difference being that with the book, our culture is going to change. And you see that every day when you see children, teenagers, and adults sitting in front of a computer screen instead of reading the newspaper, a magazine, or a book. The difference is is very important. It's an intimate difference in the way the mind interacts with the word. I think of my grandfather, who was illiterate and knew much of the Bible by heart, and I realize how different the world can be for the next generation, which does not understand what a book was and is, and their whole experience of words is on a screen, which is very facile and very shallow and moves very quickly, and there is none of the intimacy of a book page and the words on a page. And I decided to use this whole transition as the backdrop to the story of somebody who is going to experience this very intimately, a bookhound. I chose him because, unlike a bookseller, he doesn't deal with the public very much. Unlike a bookseller, he has a lot more time to use freely. Booksellers are stuck behind desks all day long, dealing with the public, but dealing with the opening and closing of a door at regular hours. My hero Henry can go out in the early hours of the morning if he feels like it and sleep late. This gives him a lot of flexibility as a sleuth. His income can be earned in off hours, and he's not a paid detective. He's searching for answers to questions he's asking himself and nobody else is asking. And so he has to both ask the questions and find the answers all on his own terms. And this afforded me the chance to deal with, first, a portrait of the age of books as it is dying, and the metaphor of death and death in both cases, and then also have him discover let's say a philosophy, or discover the reasons why he loves books and their importance and what is going to be missed and lost when books are gone. And maybe I was hoping that if maybe people read this, it's a series, and I'm starting slowly, and I'm working through a series of events, and hopefully by the end of this, those who do read the book will have books, the three of them so far, would have something of the same intimate understanding of books that I feel personally and that I'm trying to impart to the character of Henry Sullivan.
How long have you been? You've been online since 2004?
Well, the bookstore is online now. I've been selling books online since '96. And I have a website of my own where I publish, essentially for the free, things that aren't likely to otherwise see the light of day that I like and I want people to read. Mostly short stories, but a lot of essays with my rants about books and the things that I care about. I think the future is very questionable at the moment. But I think that if a culture arises which appreciates what the book is and appreciates what's being lost, which is what I am about in my own small way, I think that bookstores can survive. There won't be as many. They're likely to be very specialized places of local interest, usually neighborhood stores like this is for Jamaica Plain. The Booksmith were in Brookline, near where I lived with my family for many years. They, despite terrible high costs, they survive well. The Avenue Victor Hugo bookshop, my store, couldn't bear it didn't have enough of a neighborhood around it, and it couldn't bear the weight of the increased costs of urban economy. So I was pushed out, and that was had our rents remained roughly the same as they had been, I'd be still selling books from behind a counter, and I wouldn't have had time to write this novel, which is I guess maybe ironic fate. I don't know.
And one last question. What advice do you have for other aspiring writers?
Well, I started writing when I was very young, seriously writing when I was 12, and wrote for the next 20-some years with no success in terms of getting published other than a few small little literary magazines, and gave up, and I shouldn't have. And one of the things I have said very often since is that it was one of the big mistakes of my life, and I was very happy when the opportunity came around for me to try to write again. And I recommend that whoever wants to write should just not stop, and they should write every day of their lives. If it's a pain, if it's a chore, if it's work to sit down and write, don't do it. Writers should love to write. That's one of the keys to writing good books. And I think that there's much more of a future for writers than there is right now for bookstores and books, in the old sense, because all the media that we're dealing with on all of these various digital devices, all these media need writers. So there's a place for writers, which is not the same exact thing as saying there's a place for books, which is more of my specific concentration with Hound. But the bookstore that survives will be the bookstore that finds a local audience that understands the importance of the page and the paper and the glue and the binding and the words on the page, and most importantly the content and the intimate interplay between the mind and the page, which does not happen with a Kindle. And I guess that's part of my own motivations here.
Thank you.